Okay, let's go ahead and get started. You have joined a special event with the Buffett Early Childhood Institute tonight, focusing on technology in the early years. We are really thrilled to have such a wonderful broad audience here with us tonight to learn a little bit about this important topic. I just want to kick off a little bit by introducing myself. I'm Amy Mart. I'm the Director of Professional Learning here at the Buffett Early Childhood Institute. We're bringing this event to you tonight in partnership with many partners, most prominently the learning community of Douglas and Sarpy County, who's an important partner with us in the Superintendent's Early Childhood Plan, which is a collaboration between the Institute and 11 school districts in the Omaha area, really focused on elevating the role of school districts and supporting them in working with children and families from birth all the way through third grade. So we are really thrilled to be talking tonight about this important topic. Feel free to say hello in the chat. Hi, Deb. I see your name there. Drop your name and your location. And throughout the session, we will ask you to use that to interact and react to and ask questions about what you're hearing here tonight. And please feel free to do that. At the end of the session, we will take some Q&A from the audience, so feel free to drop your questions as you think of them. We'll have folks behind the scenes here keeping an eye out for those questions and funneling them up to myself and to the panelists so that we can respond to those. Hi, I see some old friends there in the chat. Hi, Tony. So wonderful to have everybody here tonight. So I just want to start with a few comments kind of here from myself and from the Institute's perspective. And everything we do in the Superintendent's Early Childhood Plan and really in the Institute as a whole focuses on creating quality, continuity, and equity for children from birth onward. And so quality we mean quality care and education that's really rooted in responsive interactions with adults, caring adults and caregivers. Continuity such that children's experiences and expectations are aligned from home to childcare to school and across the developmental continuum. And equity such that all children, regardless of race and ethnicity or regardless of their zip code, really have access to the kinds of resources and opportunities that they and their families really need to thrive. So with that focus on quality, continuity, and equity, we come to this topic of technology. And technology and children's use of technology can be a really powerful tool for quality, continuity, and equity, and that's why it's been such a focus for us. And certainly in the context of the pandemic in the last few months, technology is playing a greater and greater role in our lives. And we think that doesn't need to be cause for alarm, and I think you'll hear tonight that there are lots and lots of ways that technology can be a powerful force for supporting children's learning and development. But really the most important factor on ensuring that children thrive and supporting their well-being is the well-being of the adults who care for and educate children. And so I just want to start us off by saying to all of you out there, educators, caregivers, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, everyone who's caring for children in this really unprecedented and challenging time, you're doing a great job. You're doing the best that you can. I hope that you're all well and you're all taking care of yourselves and taking care of each other. These last few months have been really challenging and there are challenging times ahead. But please know that no matter how many hours your child watched on a screen today, and no matter how you've been thinking of these last few months, that you are doing a good job and that the technology tools that you have in your hands can really be a powerful force for positive growth and development for your child. And we hope you learned some things tonight that can help make that possible. So with that, I'm going to introduce to you all tonight someone we're really, really honored and excited to have with us here. Dr. Chip Donohue is the founding director at the Erikson Institute's Technology in Early Childhood Center, and it has been senior fellow at the Fred Rogers Institute. And he really, literally wrote the book on children's positive ways of using media to support children's development, and knows better than anyone the research on children's use of technology and how it can be a positive force for children's learning and development. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Donohue. When he's finished, we will have a moderated panel with 3 other presenters who will introduce you a little bit later. So for now, I'll turn it over to Dr. Donohue.
Great, thanks, Amy, and welcome everyone to this conversation. I want to echo what Amy said about we've had some challenges along the way. We do have to situate our conversation tonight in the reality of the pandemic, but we've been talking a lot about during the pandemic and beyond, that when we talk about technology and young children, there have been some positives through all of this, and we need to understand how to leverage that, and that we're not just dealing with what's going on right now. We're looking for ways to include technology in our thinking moving forward. So, adults have really gained some essential tech skills, not the least of which is to learn how to be a home facilitator, work from home person, and a home learning facilitator. We've been juggling old roles with new roles and trying to figure out how all of that works. The stress level has been high. And we've gone from wondering if technology could help us connect with each other and help us build relationships to really relying on technology to do that. Think of all of the times that you've used screen media to connect with your family, to connect with others, to stay connected with friends, to do what we're doing right now and share ideas. We really have understood that this two-way communication is really important. So I would like to suggest that instead of worrying about screen time tonight, we should celebrate screens as lifelines, as they have really been for all of us during this time, and will continue to be. So some key concepts for tonight, and I'm just going to make some brief remarks because I'm as eager as you are to get on to our wonderful panelists. The first one is always the first one for me, and of course, coming from the Fred Rogers Center, you would expect this. Relationships matter most when we talk about technology. We can reimagine screen time as beneficial. It doesn't just have to be what's wrong with screen time. We can think about a healthy media diet and use that metaphor to help us think about how we help children and ourselves stay healthy in this digital age. And then we can understand this concept that we've had about media mentors and how adults and young children's lives can help them learn to navigate the digital age. Back to this one, relationships matter most. And when we translate that into technology, it means using media together leads to more learning. Co-viewing and joint engagement really matter. Watch together, talk together about what you're watching. And if you can't watch with your child, you can still ask questions of them about what they're watching. We know that in early literacy and language development, we know that if you hug and hold your child and read a children's book, that it's a richer language experience for the child. Well, it's the same with technology. Snuggle up and look at that screen together. Socially contingent interactions matter, and this is that give and take during video chat that comes back and forth from grandma to the child and back, and we're excited at serve and return. We know that language as well, but this notion that if we really emote through the screen to each other, the screen just becomes a vehicle for the communication. Finally, we want to look for interactive media. Yes, we want interactive digital media, but I'm always wanting it to be sure it has the opportunity to have interactions with others. So it's interactive media plus interactions with others. And the little line at the bottom, quality time together can include screens, does not precursor. Avoid the false dichotomy. Look at the sign, do not enter or enter only. Well, what are we supposed to do? With technology, it's not either or. It's not all tech or no tech. It's not tech or play. It's not tech or nature. It's not screens are bad or screens are good. And it's certainly not children are more isolated than ever during the pandemic, or children are more connected than ever during the pandemic. We really can address problematic screen use and find ways to maximize benefits. It's not an either or, it's not black or white, it's not all one way or all the other. And when we can get into gray area around technology, we can have a richer conversation around how we make sure it's positive for children. Just take a look at the images that are on your screen right now. And this phrase, not all screens are created equal. We worry a lot about screen time, but screens come in lots of ways for young children in this digital age. And some of these technologies don't even have screens in a traditional sense. So this notion of understanding what children are looking at and how they're engaging with the media really matters. And it's part of empowering children to use these tools. Common Sense Media said to us, what we do on screens and how we do it is more important than time spent. In other words, instead of counting minutes and how many minutes your child's been on the screen, look for what they're doing on the screen. Look for the quality of the content. Look for the level of engagement. Reimagine screen time is beneficial. If screen time is active, not passive or sedentary, it's a positive thing. If it's interactive, not isolating, that's positive. If it's inclusive, not exclusive. It's about enhancing, not displacing. It was about meaning-making, not meaningless use of technology. If it's about creating media, not just consuming media. If it's a tool for learning and for teaching and for young children, what I really have passion for is let's give them tools for their own learning and their own exploration of the world around them. And then I'm back to this notion of lifeline for connections, not disconnections. And a reminder that it's never either or, but we can look at how we can think of screen time differently. When we look at the healthy media diet, this is a graphic that we used at the Technology and Early Childhood Center at Erikson Institute. And really uses that metaphor of a healthy meal and portions in a meal. I think that's a useful visual for us to think about what is it that makes for engaging and creativity and discovery and things that can be explored together. Those are the kinds of things that will make for a healthy diet. And a healthy diet also relates to how much a child is consuming, right? So I would like children in today's world to know what it feels like to be full, when they've had enough, to self-regulate and learn that I can turn the computer off or the iPad off and I can walk away from it. That'd be really helpful to get them thinking and doing some of that work for themselves. And at the bottom is this little reminder, this little nudge for all of us. Leave a little room for junk food. We are going to consume media. We are going to just watch the screen passively. That's okay. There are better ways, as you can see on the slide, but a little of that is okay. And so that's about moderating that for you and your child and being understanding that the children are watching you consume media junk food as well and learning from that. And then this concept of media mentors. This really came out of the children's library world, and you can see the book cover that's on the screen right now is about becoming a media mentor for children's librarians. And I had the pleasure of writing the foreword for that book. This concept of media mentor really is about adults and what role we can play, what role we should play, what role we need to play in helping young children safely navigate the digital age. And with this increase in technology use during the pandemic and learning at home and using technology for recreation at home as well, children need media mentors and they need role models for how to use media well. So an educator could help a family and children by helping them get the most out of technology. How can they make the most? How can they make sure that screen time is beneficial? The next bullet is really important because we do have to address the screen time concerns. There are things that we're worried about around screen time, and duration is one of those. So we don't ignore them. We honor them. We welcome them into the conversation, but we don't stop there because it's not either or. We get on with talking about benefits as well. We can help parents move from being screen worried to screen wise. The more parents understand about technology, the more they understand about the implications for children's growth and development and learning, the more screen wise they become, and the more competent and confident they become as media mentors for their own children. We can identify the strategies for promoting learning with technology and promoting the connection between technology and social emotional development and being outside and being inside. And the technology is about the whole child and help to understand that. We can encourage digital wellness and living well with media. And I really like that last phrase, living well with media. What does it mean in my family to live well with media? What does digital wellness mean in my family? And I think that's really important for us to think about as well. Each family is going to define these things for themselves, and that's okay. That's better than okay. That's exactly how it should be, but we can help them make those decisions. And then finally, connecting parents to community resources for early learning and technology. And I think that's, again, this notion of who's out there. Is it librarians? It's educators. It's informal educators in other areas that children spend their time in. We all could be part of this media mentor community, this ecology of media mentorship. And that's really what I'm all about. So I'm going to stop there, and we're going to let Amy take over again and get our panel going.
Excellent. Thank you so much for those framing comments, Dr. Donohue. I mean, so much good fuel for thought. And we can see in the chat how people are really resonating and connecting with a lot of the ideas that you shared. So I'm really excited to welcome our panel and get them thinking and talking about some of these ideas. So will you advance to the next slide for me, and I will introduce you to the three panelists that are going to be thinking and talking with us here tonight. The first is Dr. Ann Karabon. Ann is Assistant Professor of Early Childhood and STEM Education, that's Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. She's also a former early childhood teacher and elementary school teacher, so brings lots of really important perspectives to this conversation. Next, we have Gwen Gideon, who is the director of the Omaha Early Learning Center at Skinner, career early childhood educator, also a mother and grandmother. So she also brings some very important perspectives to this conversation. And last but not least, we have our very own Keeley Bibins. She is an educational facilitator here at the Buffett Early Childhood Institute. She's a former teacher as well, taught here in Omaha, and is the mother of 3 boys, 2 of whom are Omaha Public School students and engaged in blended learning right now. And so she will share perspectives from those hats as well. So I'll go ahead and get us started with a question, and I'll pose this to anyone who wants to jump in. First, just what are some of the concerns that you've heard about young children's use of technology? And as you're sharing those concerns, also, are there any solutions or problem solving that you've been able to do with educators or parents during this time? I guess I'll start with Gwen. Do you want to share any thoughts on that?
Concerns that I've heard is that often children are just using the technology for play, or that it's being used for babysitting, or just some of the things that I've heard that sometimes come across as negative. But any way that children are using technology, they're learning to use technology. It's what we do with them while they have that technology that I feel is what is the most important piece of it. So I don't think that just them having it is something negative. I think it's something that helps them to even learn to appreciate and use it even more.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Either Keeley or Ann, concerns that you've heard from families, from educators, in the general public about children's technology use?
Some concerns that I heard about the technology use is very similar to what Gwen said. The children using it as gaming, playing with toys. Playing with the apps, downloading some apps that need to be monitored, maybe. Using and being distracted even during that remote. For those who are using that remote learning, they may be on the other wonderful apps that the schools may have put on versus being focused on the actual learning itself. So those are a couple of things. And then also trying to put the tablets away when it's time to put the technology away. There's some opportunity to help with social emotional learning, social emotional development, because it's a challenge. So that's just some of the things that I did here and that I've experienced myself. But like you said, I have some children in my home that are techies, and we'll just call them that. And we had quite a few emotional learning opportunities when we first had the tablets. So yeah, and I'll be happy to share any of those.
So I love reframing those as learning opportunities, Keeley. I appreciate that. How have you been able to mitigate some of those concerns, whether it's in your own home or in your coaching of teachers? How do you address those?
Well, I'll use my children as guinea pigs. I've always done that. So I guess I'm telling how many people that I do that. But as a teacher, they're my first-hand way of training in my home. And then if it goes well, I'll share it with my colleagues and things like that. So one thing that I found in my house are things called tech tickets. Tech tickets are, each child has a set of tickets in a different color with their name on them, and they get 14 on Sunday. Okay. And so each tech ticket is worth 30 minutes. So, and within that 30 minutes, they can turn, if they want 30 minutes of screen time, whether it be, now the learning is something separate, but if they want to play the other apps on the tablet, they want to play, watch TV, play their video game, they get 30 minutes. And if they want to play together, they both have to turn in a ticket. They're different colors, so they can't steal from one another. But it's also, we have this slogan called use them fast, use them slow, but when they're gone, there ain't no more. That's kind of how it is. I know it's not politically correct, grammatically correct, but then they quote that saying back to me. But what that teaches them, one, is sometimes you have to save, right? Do you really want to use them all right now? And then also they can earn more if they do extra chores around the house, or I have the right to take them if I see fit. So they have to turn some in if, we have a set of set of things that have happened. You're like, you got to turn in a tech ticket for that. And so that kind of helps them. And then we have a timer. So when that timer goes off, we have, like I said, we've had to have some conversations. There's some disappointment there. Like, I don't want to, I just want a few more minutes. So then we have to talk through that. And I did something similar in the classroom. My pre-K kids, we had 30 minutes a week. And so we had a chart, we had a child's picture on it, and they had 3 boxes. And so when they wanted to use the computer, they had to put an X in the box, and then they had to start a timer for 10 minutes. You got 3 boxes a week. So if you want to use them all in one day, if you want to spread them out, we had a lot of conversations. We went to visit our weekly calendar to help them know when they were going to get more tickets and things like that. But it's just really giving them the opportunity to predict when they can use it, how they can use it. And even my kids, if they use, like you said, some things that they're learning, I'm like, okay, I want you to tell me what happened. Mommy was cooking, I missed it. Come tell me what you watched, what you learned, things like that.
Yeah.
So.
What I love about that, I'm seeing so many positive responses to this strategy in the chat, Keeley. It really promotes their self-regulation, right? And that them having to decide how and when they're going to use those, that executive functioning to plan out, like, oh, I know I really want to watch this show, so I got to hold back 2 tickets at the end of the week. I think it's brilliant. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
And I have to add, sorry, video games are only on the weekend, so they really sometimes have to save. Because if you want to have that video game time, you can't have that until Friday night. So
that's it's just that setting those limits. And the last thing you said about, it's a subtle difference, but there is a difference between them just passively watching a show by themselves and watching a show and then coming and having a conversation with you about it, and making a meeting about it and having a dialogue. It sort of levels it up to a real learning experience. So I appreciate that too. Thanks. Dr. Karabon, would you add anything to that? Getting back to any concerns that you've heard and ways that you might have been able to address or to assuage those.
For certain. Good evening, everyone. So I work predominantly in early childhood education in early elementary years, so kindergarten through 3rd grade. So the pre-service and in-service teachers that I've worked with in the last 8 months, many of them with their concerns with remote learning has been where the screen kind of doesn't show the child's whole face, so they can't see engagement. So that seems to be like a logistic struggle or concern that they have. But another one that I've heard from both families and teachers in the field currently is using technology, digital technology, as a reward. When we position it less as a tool for use, as Dr. Donohue included in the beginning of having meaningful interactions and using it as digital technologies as something that is useful for learning, when we use it only solely as a reward, then it becomes something that is, it can become contentious then. So Keeley's idea of the tech tickets is fantastic. I can see it throughout the screen, the chat, that everyone loves it. But I also think that idea of family involvement can be a concern as well. So I have a graduate student currently who works with toddlers. And if you can imagine doing remote learning with toddlers, it's putting a child who's 2 in front of a screen, and then guess what? They're going to move away quite quickly. So I think that's one of the concerns too, is just how to manage all of the moving parts and continue to have open communication and dialogue with families and children as well.
Thanks very much. I'm also really interested to know about, we talked about the concerns and some of the ways you've addressed those, but what have been some maybe unexpected positive consequences of this shift towards more technology use, whether that's the shift to remote learning, the shift to using technology to connect with other people? What have been some of the silver linings, so to speak, that you may have seen as we've made this shift to children using technology more in their learning and development? Do you want to start, Dr. Karabon? I know you were just speaking, but if you have thoughts.
Yes, no, I have been wildly impressed with all of the early childhood educators out there who are doing amazing work with young children. I think, two things, like, to kind of preface what I believe in with technology in regards to technology is it's not always digital. When we refer to technology, it can be a low cost or like, it doesn't have to be plugged in or have a battery to be considered technology. So it's anything that has been engineered to make life efficient. So a pencil, a block, erasable markers at this point. I mean, that is a crazy innovation. So I think really thinking about technology in a broader sense, it can be really helpful with some positive, like, unexpected, consequences that have happened from it that are really positive. But with that, the T in STEM, we tend to talk about science and mathematics a lot. We can kind of make sense of that because it is schoolified in a sense, and the E and T, engineering and technology, tends to kind of fall secondary to it. Yet it's so vital for this interdisciplinary learning, and especially with our young children, we know that they're learning holistically throughout everything that they're doing. They're growing and developing through exploration, as we know, through play. So we think about solving problems and trying to find solutions to that. That's engineering in and of itself, and technology is the solution. So really, when we start to broaden our scope of what is technology, it certainly incorporates all those different solutions that exist. One of the really exciting things that I've been able to witness in the past few months, I work on a research project that brings biomechanics into early elementary grade classrooms. And if biomechanics seems to be a scary word, all it really means is how the body moves within space. And if we can think about our very young children, they love to move and they love to learn about their bodies and figure it all out. And with that, there's low cost technologies that have been incorporated into classrooms, such as balance beams, or even just the human body, exploring the forces you put out and the forces that are acting on you. But also some really high technology, like high cost technologies, such as like virtual reality, using systems like Canovia, where it's like a motion capture, in which you can see, probably with our more like upper early elementaries, like second, third graders, who are jumping or kicking a soccer ball and are able to see the different angles that their legs are moving at and able to see it and measure it on a screen capture. Really high level thinking skills when it comes to science and mathematics with using technology. So that has been really impressive, that how teachers are embracing new innovative ideas, especially during a pandemic when innovation and creativity tends to sort of fall behind a little bit. So I've been really impressed with teachers' willingness to try new things and be innovative during this time.
That's great. Thank you. I love that framing of just technology as tools for learning and exploration and problem solving. And as children are learning more digital technologies, it gives them more tools. Yeah, that's great. Others, Gwen, Keeley, silver linings or unexpected positive things that have happened.
A silver lining that I've noticed is, I mentioned earlier that often we hear that these devices are being used for just play and entertainment. But what I have seen in my building is this shift away from play and entertainment to recognizing and realizing that it really can be used as a teaching tool. And for many families, that was just a thought of, no, learning happens in this classroom setting. But because we've had to go to remote, even with our infant to toddlers, they're now beginning to see that it can be used as a tool for learning and not just for entertainment and play. And I think that is such a positive shift in thinking for families, to begin to see these devices as learning tools and to begin to encourage their children to see them also as learning tools and not just for entertainment.
That's great. Yeah, really, and really resonates with what Amy's saying as well. It's great to hear. Keeley, anything you would add about positive silver linings from this shift towards more use of digital technology?
Well, I will say, I've got to say that my kids enjoy doing homework. That's never happened before. They actually look forward to actually even though they have the same packets in front of them, the teachers put it on the Seesaw app. So they would rather do it in the Seesaw app. And I've even called my kids. I'm like, Mom, I have 4 more assignments. I have 4 more homeworks. Can I finish my 4 more homeworks, right? And I'm like, can I capture this? Because this will probably never happen again in my life. And being excited to do their homework. So that's one of the silver linings for me personally. And I found the talent that my son has. He's really, really good at photography. He's been using his tablet to take pictures. And so we've been talking about, he'll use black and white, he'll change it into sepia, he'll do all these different things. He's zooming in, zooming out. And so we've been printing them and making this mobile museum, this gallery at my house. And he talks about what he's taking a picture of, why he took the picture of it, and things like that. So he actually got a actual real camera now because of this use of technology. But what I have known is talk about even in the classroom is that sometimes we have different things, like we're right now, because kids can't go outside or different things, we're using a lot of Go Noodle, and we're using a lot of different learnings. But also at the same time, we can use those type of lessons into our actual lesson plans. So if we're talking about patterning, we can go to Go Noodle, where Blazer Fresh is talking about patterns, and they're dancing right there during that intermediate time, still talking about patterns that you're talking about in the classroom. And here we are being very intentional with this particular screen time and embedded into gross motor, still talking about something that we've introduced and enhancing in the classroom. So those are a couple of things that have come through that. A lot of social emotional, I think, what's his name? What's the tiger? Daniel Tiger. Daniel Tiger has a lot of great. Yes, my son even helped me the other day. He said, Mom, you feel so mad that you want to roar. Take a deep breath and count to 4. Right? That's a Daniel Tiger. And it was because he made a mess. So, so having those type of videos that kind of help support what's also being taught in the classroom, knowing that the kids love Go Noodle, they love those type of things, but embedding those in the lessons to help continue to teach or enhance what the lesson was, the objective of the day or the week.
Yeah, an audience, if you are seeing other silver linings or positive effects, please feel free to drop those there. I see some of you already are. The people who develop these games and apps are brilliant. They're very smart at getting them to be as engaging and as sticky as possible for children, right? And if we can harness that power for learning in ways that are also, responsible, I think, there's a lot of potential there. I hear you guys saying, so and that's exciting. And we love Daniel Tiger at my house. He's the best.
May I add one more silver lining that I think is like field wide in early childhood? I think one of the benefits that has come from going to remote or distant context, or even if those of you who are doing a hybrid model, is that we are going back to the foundation that is so critical that we know of early childhood, of no matter what the weather is, we're going outside and we're playing. No matter what, we're going to build in connection with the families. We're going to have social construction of knowledge with one another. And it's not just in early childhood. I think our other grade bands are starting to see the benefits of what we do in early childhood. So I say be trendsetters, this is our time to shine and say, we know what's really good for children, no matter how old. I mean, my undergrads, it's the same thing that's beneficial. They're just taller children. We can we need to do this across the board. And what we're doing in early childhood has always been this. It's just a little bit different, but we are certainly trendsetters right now. And it's amazing work that you all are doing.
I think that's so true. Yes, I think early childhood is having a moment, social and emotional learning, and then focus on that is having a moment. I mean, these are really coming to the forefront. It's just the fundamentals of education that we have to keep front and center, regardless of what's going on around us, right? So I think that's right, and thank you very much for highlighting that. So I'll switch gears a little bit here. Think a little bit about how technology has been a tool to strengthen partnership and communication between schools or childcare providers and families. So I know it can be, those partnerships can be challenging even in the best of times, and in remote learning or in times when we're physically distanced from each other, it can be really challenging. So how has technology provided the tools for families to be connected with educators? Gwen, you want to start?
Sure.
Anybody else?
When we first started the remote, of course, it was so new to us. We were using whatever platforms that families were most comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
The families, I found them becoming even more engaged with the teachers using it, because
Mm-hmm.
before going remote, they really didn't get an opportunity to know what was happening, what the children were doing, what the teachers were doing. Once we began posting our lessons and the parents were doing the lessons with the children, they gained such a greater appreciation for it, and just the ability to be able to share what they were doing and just the excitement on their faces to be able to participate in that learning that they were doing with their children has been great. And it just really strengthened those relationships with teachers and parents, because now parents want to know more. I've encouraged teachers to not just give an activity, but to share with the parents, what are you looking for in this activity, so that they don't think that we're just playing, because that's what we hear a lot, that we play all day, but there's so much learning that takes place during play. So it just gave us an opportunity to really help parents understand just what we're doing with that play. While we're having fun, there are things that we're looking for. And so we encourage the parents to look for those same things and then communicate with us. So it really strengthened those relationships with teachers and parents, and understanding the why behind what we do, why we do the activities that we do.
Yeah.
It just strengthened that relationship, and it really just increased that appreciation that parents had for what's happening in those early childhood classrooms.
I have heard that so much. I mean, so much more appreciation for educators and the work that you do now that families have a little bit more of a window into it. Yeah. That's Keeley, from your perspective as a parent, what have been changes or innovations in your connection with your kids' school?
I will say that, like Gwen said, I do feel like their set of teachers that I have this year, I've always been an active parent, one that asks a lot of questions. Here's my cell phone number, but I've had a lot more communication with their parents. I mean, with their teachers. As a parent, I feel like they can text me. We're on first name basis. I feel like I get more, I get more texts about, he did really great today. This is what we're working on. I've seen growth in him, even when he's, when one of them are distracted on their tablet with another game, the teacher will let me know, and then I can make sure that is rectified really quick, and we can bring them back into the classroom. So I think it's been more of a partnership for truly, and I do understand that because I'm partly having to do the job that they would have to do when my kids are in the classroom, and so they're relying a lot more on me. But I also think that my children actually see us as a team versus mom and my teacher. Like here at school, this is my teacher, this is my mom, and we really don't come together until conferences. But now it's like I feel like I can even, and I've done this before, and I know teachers don't scream at me, but sometimes when my kids are in the meeting with the teacher, I might come behind them and be like, hi, or say, can you tell your teacher I need to meet with her, right? And so my mommy wants to meet with you, right? So, and I know some teachers hate that, please forgive me. But and right away they'll call me and we'll discuss some things, or we'll talk about some questions, or they're saying, I can communicate, we're having tech issues, we live in a bad, internet area, and they seem to be more lenient. Yeah.
At least one more question from me, and then I want to make sure we make time for a Q&A from the audience. But I said at the top of the hour, one of the things that we really focus on a lot at the Institute is equity. And in the context of the last several months, we've heard a lot of concerns about the digital divide, concerns about inequitable access to technology and to high-speed internet devices, et cetera. So what other challenges are you seeing show up and when it comes to equity? What inequities have surfaced in these last few months that create barriers to children's access to opportunity? I'll pass it to anyone who wants to start off on that one.
So in recent reports, so out of a place called NIEER, they did a very large study, about 1,000 participants of children ages 3 to 5 who are not enrolled in kindergarten. So it was the families that were filling out a survey in June, like May and June time, have some preliminary findings. And it won't be a shock to anyone on this call, this webinar this evening, but most of what we're seeing during the pandemic is mirroring what was there, the inequities that were there beforehand. So access to internet has only exacerbated what has already been in existence. So children with special needs are not maybe possibly having all their needs met. Children from low income or BIPOC children are not receiving high quality inquiry-based learning. So the inequities that existed in formal schooling settings are certainly showing up during this context as well. So I encourage you all to continue to read about those reports. However, you probably are aware of those types of things. I think one of the challenges is really providing that high quality care in a remote setting. So for those of you who are doing either a hybrid or teaching in a remote context, making sure that we still are having children do play activities and are learning through inquiry is really important and key. So if that is an asynchronistic where you're going to record yourself leading and then go and investigate magnets in your house, go and find a magnet and bring it back and let's talk when you get back. Using a tablet to go and take a photograph of some evidence of you exploring something. Explore friction by sliding across the floor with different surfaces and different things on your feet or barefoot. What happens with that? And really making learning come alive in the home, I think is really key and important. I think another inequity that's surfaced, and someone in the chat mentioned it as well, is this teacher self-confidence with technology. I hear it all the time of I'm just not good at technology, or it's not something that I know a lot about. And a lot of our adults who are working with young children right now are people who grew up with technology. So we had kind of this option whether or not to learn it when we were younger, perhaps, or as we were getting older. It keeps innovating. We're trying to keep up. And if you're old like me, you still try to figure out what TikTok is. But I think we have to really consider that our children are growing up in technology. They don't have the option of whether or not to be good at it. They're expected to. So, maybe it's a call to all of you early childhood educators out there, but we really need you to maybe swallow that moment of I'm not good at it and embrace it. And we tell children all the time, you've got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is your time to try things out. And it's okay if it doesn't go successfully the first or 4 times you try it. But the fact that you're going to be willing to try Pear Deck, Canva, doing a YouTube video, all of those things help children understand it as a learning tool versus just a consumer of digital technologies.
Those are all really important thoughts, Anne. Thanks. Other thoughts about ways that you're seeing inequity show up? We've got the inequities in devices or in internet connectivity, but how else is this showing up in the last several months?
I believe it's also showing up because some of our students are not, sometimes the English is their second language. And so a lot of things are being communicated that are not in their language, not in their home language. And when we had to move to technology, it was so quick and every day was something new. We were changing, okay, we're doing this, okay, we got to change it up. And so by the time we have families who English is not their first language, they were missing a lot of information. They were a lot of information wasn't translated. If they get it translated, there's something new that came out after that. So I think that was a big inequity that happened and it was affecting our families and our children.
What have you seen, Gwen, in the families that you serve?
That has been the same. Of course, with us, it's been just access to the technology, the internet.
Mhm.
And I would agree completely, with for the families where English is a second language, it all happens so fast that you're just getting the assignments out there, and then you realize that there are people not participating and really having to reach out and find out what those barriers are. And language truly was a barrier, which was then quickly something else we had to, for many of my teachers, teach them, okay, how are we quickly going to translate what you're doing so we can get it out there to them. So it also actually showed to be a barrier for the teachers, for many of them, because they didn't know how to quickly get it translated. But then of course you get those measures in place and now those families are on board. So I would agree that language has been one of the other barriers.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the
And-
chat, and another
Yeah.
thing that I've heard is, having access to an adult who can sit at elbow with you and help supervise that and enrich that remote learning experience that is certainly not equitably distributed across our various families. So
And
that,
And I did respond to that because I told the young lady, I said, I'm glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
that was something I'm like, that's my life. Why am I not paying
absolutely.
attention? Like, yeah, duh. Because a lot, my kids, I'm blessed enough to work for a place that was very, very flexible with allowing me to get them transitioned into that remote learning. But because of my family composition, my children have to go to daycare because I have to work.
Mhm.
And so what happens is they're at daycare and then I come home and I'm teaching. If I could show you my dining room wall right now, I have so many anchor charts on my dining room wall because I'm teaching at home. And so but I'm blessed enough to have that career. So I think about families who don't, families who's like, I have to go to work. One thing that I did try to help with some of the schools that I helped support, what I did with my children, and when I heard something like this is what we're doing, I communicated to the child care centers. Are you prepared for this? These children are coming, they're going to have remote learning. I took a couple of days to go in and help support, get kids onto their tablets, connected to the Wi-Fi that were built into the tablets. Also contacted some child cares that actually send kids to have kids at the school that I work with and that I support, and going to them and saying, are we prepared for this? Do you have any questions? How can we as a school support you? And there was a lot of child care facilities like, I'm not ready for this. I had one child care facility who was basically like, I'm not doing this. I'm not. And she was servicing 47 children. So I'm like, okay, we have to get this together. So I'm glad that was brought up because that is a big inequity. Like, every parent cannot just sit at home and don't have the luxury to sit at home and just make sure that their kids are on that.
And we have some incredible childcare providers and a variety of community partners, out of school time providers and other community organizations that have stepped up to be there with kids as they're doing remote learning and to provide that care and education. So kudos to everyone who's doing that important work as well.
And some organization, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was saying there are some organizations in the community too that kind of created what are called hubs where kids can come and they will be that support during some churches have opened certain sections for kids to come in and families to be able to utilize.
Yeah, it's crucial work, and supporting, getting them the support they need too is a really, really crucial part of the equation.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, we've actually found that we've had to actually take time to help parents learn how to do these pieces. Yeah. Like they are working all day and now you're asking me to do this, and just trying to restructure how we're asking them to do what they're doing, and then also help teach them how to do it and how to build it into their day so that it can happen.
Yeah. That's Chip's concept of media mentors, whether that's a parent or a child care provider or, the librarian at the local library or, someone at the church. There are a lot of different folks stepping into that role right now, and, a lot of great resources out there for them, but that we can be that connector. I've got two really important questions that have surfaced in the chat. Please feel free to drop others, and panelists can respond as they're able, and we can also think about maybe a Q&A document afterwards, because there've been so many rich conversations here. One, though, I think that we haven't adequately addressed yet is really technology in the like 0 to 3 space. So birth, infants and toddlers, young children, concerns about their use of technology, how that impacts their brain development, what's appropriate there. Chip, I'm going to ask you to speak to this first, but then others, Gwen, especially you working with very young children as well. What concerns and how do we address those concerns?
Yeah, sure. So if we look at the American Academy of Pediatrics and their recommendations, they've kind of gone down a little bit over time, and they have, during the pandemic, understood that there'll be more screens. Whoever posted the comment talked about how toddlers don't learn well from screens, and that is exactly right. If we want to teach children language, we talk with them. We have a conversation. We engage. We don't put an app on. So the app can add to it and enhance. The one area where the pediatricians gave us a free pass was video chat. And the idea that if a toddler can connect to grandma or grandpa or aunt so-and-so, that's a positive thing. And we have some nice research that shows that actually toddlers can learn language under that condition because it's the socially contingent back and forth interaction. It really is a conversation with grandma, and the screen is just, goes away. It's just a mediator. So I think we need to be careful. I can't think of lots of reasons why young infants need anything to do with technology or screens. They need to be hugged and held and talked to. But video chat seems to be something that even the pediatricians are saying they recognize the social emotional value of that. So that's a good start. But up until about 3, the pediatricians and most of us in this field are saying there's not a lot of compelling reasons for kids to be looking at screens.
Thanks, Chip. Would you add anything to that, Gwen, or what's your experience?
I agree 100%. And because of that, as we continue to grow and in our abilities to provide the remote learning for children, infants to age 3, teachers learn to create Zoom meetings where they are actually leading, the child can hear the voice. Because it's important for them not to forget their teacher's voice, not to forget their teacher's face. They need that social emotional. So our delivery of lessons grew into creating those times when you can get together with the parent, with the child, and talk and laugh and smile, so that they don't forget those social emotional connections. It is all about the words at this level. And that's what we found really got the children excited. They were so excited to see their teachers' faces and to hear their voices. And so the planning actually involved into it becoming more Zoom based so that you could see and hear and do things as together as you can via Zoom.
And what I heard you saying earlier, Gwen, is that a lot of what constituted remote learning for your youngest children was providing their families with support for the activities and the types of enrichment they could provide in the home environment. So that's really crucial. So I'll pose one more question that seems appropriate. So as we're nearing, within 2 hours of bedtime now, it's time for us to start winding down and logging off. And how do we help children do that? So to your point about knowing and helping children understand in their media diet when they're full, Chip, a lot of concerns in the chat about, the really almost addictive nature of technology for children at times. How do we help them to turn the screen off and go re-engage in real life when it's time to do that?
I'm going to let the panel answer that, but I want to say one important thing because I read it in the chat as well. Let's be very careful about using the word addiction and young children and screens. We could have a child who has problematic screen use, who uses screens more than we'd like, but young children and addiction are a bad match, and the media has used that to alarm parents, and right now parents need support, not to freak out about things. So just be careful of the use of the word addiction.
I think I appreciate that, Chip. Yeah, I launched by saying let's not beat ourselves up, let's not feel guilty, and so yeah, I think that's it might be a little bit of a stretch. What have you all found successful as educators and as parents to get kids to disengage when it's time?
I'll go first, though we can end with maybe a parent and or teacher
Sure.
with this one. But I think model, like, and language model yourself, turning off your, like, when I'm on a device or like when I'm, on my screen, I say like, I've had enough, and like say these words out loud, and explain why. And I think when we, as adults, when we model not being on our devices all the time or being in front of a screen, I think our children pick up on those cues as well. So like Keeley's ticket idea, like what if we use it ourselves as grown-ups? But I think it's really good to model that for young children and explain why, like, oh, my eyes are starting to hurt, or, this game is really making me angry. I probably should turn it off. It's time to be done. Those types of things. And yes, grown-ups feel that same way too.
Great response.
Yeah, I think just establishing those routines and being consistent with those routines help them learn how to disconnect. Just having that routine schedule, as she has incorporated with her tech tickets, that has helped them with that. So I think just establishing routines and, and being consistent. And I agree also with modeling it and talking it out loud, thinking it out loud so they understand what is happening.
I agree. As a parent and an educator, I agree with both of you, with both of the ladies. In my house is ran by a soundtrack. We have a bunch of songs that start at 5 in the morning and they end at 8:30. These songs let us know where we should be at in our day. So, and there is a song that plays, well, first of all, when we eat dinner, no one can have technology. No one. There's no technology. We have no technology zones in the house, definitely with dinner, but there is a time where there's a song that comes on and everybody has to put their technology away. There's no more technology after 7 o'clock, 7:30. So even when I'm working, like if I have work to do, I have to wait till they're asleep. So I get them to sleep and then I come back and do some work. So it's very important to make sure that there is a routine and there's consistency and it's predictability. So it's not just because I'm, put your device away just because I'm angry. It's because it's time. It's time. It's time for all of us to unplug and enjoy each other and talk to each other. And when I talk about modeling, I put it down. And then I have my older son. He has a video game and sometimes he plays online with his friends. And so I have said enough times, because he'll get loud, and I'll say, well, if it's stressing you out, you need to turn it off. And so now my 7-year-olds will go tell him, you sound stressed out. You need to turn it off. And so that kind of gets him to, we don't want to let this technology stress us out. It's never that serious. And the rule too is you cannot talk to another person that is in the house on technology. So go talk to the person, but they are able to, because my older son was like, Mom, call me. No, we're not doing that. I need you to walk down the stairs and come talk to me. But my kids can use their screen time tech tickets too to call family. They can call down to Texas with their favorite aunt and talk to her. They have a cousin, their favorite cousin lives down the street, and to even have that type of peer engagement too. So you're right, it's all about routine and predictability and showing them the importance and value of just being with reading stuff. I heard you, Chip, when you said, sitting in front of the screen and with the family and reading a book. That's great, but I love it when they're with me and we're choral reading and holding a book and managing that book. My kids love to read, so I will not lie. There is technology. They have audio books where I found old Walkmans. Old Walkmans are awesome. They have but because they want 8 books a night, mommy can't do all that. But there are a couple of books that we will come together and we will actually sit together and read, and I fall asleep and they wake me up. But
okay, I'm going to move us to some closing thoughts from Chip Donohue, and I just have one last thing to say once he wraps us up.
All right.
And as folks are logging off, you're going to see a survey. Please do fill that out. It's brief and really helps us know how to better serve you and how to continuously improve the content we provide for you all. So please do that.
So let me just end with a couple of comments, and really we've gotten at this, but the first one is just to affirm parents and educators. Trust your instincts. You know what you're doing. You know about child development. You know how kids learn. Begin with what you know. When teachers say to me they don't know anything about technology, I remind them that they know a whole lot about young children. As a reminder again that it's about relationships. Yes, let's acknowledge the concerns. Let's definitely take the time to think about that. But if we reimagine screen time as beneficial, we give a great gift to parents, especially right now. Let's promote joint engagement and social emotional learning. Let's model that healthy media diet and digital well-being, and let's be media mentors. And I want to end with a favorite quote from Fred Rogers. Fred said this: let's not get so fascinated by what the technology can do that we forget what it can't do. It's through relationships that we grow best and learn best. And those are wise words from Fred Rogers.
Such a great note to close on. I mean, what could be better than a quote from Mr. Rogers? I'm so grateful to everyone for being here tonight. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you to everyone who behind the scenes who helped make this all happen. Please do fill out the survey as you're exiting, and you'll if you go to the links that you'll receive in your follow-up email, there's going to be a wealth of resources following up to help you continue to learn about how to use technology to your best advantage to support our children and families. So thanks again. I hope you all have a wonderful night, and we'll see you again soon.